We will start then, Venerable, it's okay?
Yes, carry on please.
Buddha Saranai. Let me welcome all our Dayakas who are present for the Durutupoya Dhamma Desan. I'm indeed happy to welcome all of you for this program that we have organized. It is done by the National Council for International Affairs of the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress. The All Ceylon Buddhist Congress, as most of you will know, is engaged in providing their services to promote Buddhism in Sri Lanka and to engage in religious, social, charitable, cultural services. The National Council for International Affairs was set up in 1956, and during last year we have expanded our activities to have a close linkage with our overseas Buddhist temples and Buddhists, and the conducting of Dhamma programs on each Poya day using the online Zoom connectivity. Technology has enabled us to bring the Buddhist world and the Buddhist countries closer to one another. And as you know, with the current COVID-19 pandemic, this is one of the good things that has happened. And we are very fortunate that this has enabled us to link up with both local and foreign Dayakas who are really engaged in Buddhism, and also to tell them more of the Dhamma and what they could do. So today we have with us the Venerable Dhammajiva Maha Thero, who would be really the out of the two who will be conducting the program, Venerable Uda Irigama Dhammajiva Maha Thero, and we will have Venerable Chandaratna Thero, and the session will be moderated by Mr. Deepal Suryarachi. I'm indeed happy to inform you that the President of the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress, Mr. Jagat Sumatipala, is present here with us, and also our own committee member, Mr. Kamal Nilavira, who has been coordinating our activities with, is currently in the UK, and we have been able to have close linkages with the London Buddhist Vihara by his being able to contact the Nayaka Thero there, the Venerable Sri Loimala Nayaka Thero. Now, just the Thuruttu full moon Poya day is today. As I said earlier, our program will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and the topic will be on Sati and mindfulness, where Most Venerable Uda Irigama Dhammajiva Maha Thero, the founder and spiritual advisor of Satipasala Foundation and Chief Meditation Master and Abbot of the Nissarana Vanaya Mitrigala, will be conducting. The second part will be conducted by Venerable Panadure Chandaratna Thero, the Deputy Abbot of Nissarana Vanaya Monastery, on how to integrate mindfulness to busy lives today. Then our moderator of the session will be Mr. Deepal Suryarachi, a management consultant and author of the book of Inward Bound for Mindfulness. And he is one of the key personalities who has been closely involved with the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress and also on mindfulness. And we are very happy that he's been involved with us right from the beginning. Today is a special day for us because of the Duruttu full moon Poya day, which is of great significance to Sri Lanka and also to Buddhism. Today marks the first visit of Lord Buddha to Mahayangana, Sri Lanka, where the Lord Buddha provided the sheaf of his hair, which was enshrined in the Dagaba of Mahayangana temple. So we are very fortunate that the first program is on a very, very significant and auspicious day that we are conducting this program. Then we are also aware of the pandemic that we are having, the COVID-19 pandemic. And today is also a very, very maybe a significant day for Sri Lanka, because we are receiving the first doses of vaccine, which is coming from our neighboring country, India, from where the same country that Lord Buddha was visited us in Sri Lanka. So I think this has been repeated on a very, very maybe historic day, which would be of much relevance to the Buddhists also, as the Durutu full moon day was the first visit of Lord Buddha, and the current situation is also signifying something of great value to our Sri Lankan Buddhists and all others. So let me invite our President, Mr. Jagat Sumatipala, to say a few words on this very special occasion, the Durutu full moon poetic.
Thank you, Professor. Venerable Dhammajiva and Venerable Chandraratana Thero and all Venerable to all in this program. I'm very much pleased to see Professor starting this new program. Earlier, International Affairs Council has done some discussions about Buddhism, and now from this Poe Day, it will be a Dhamma discussion as well. So congratulate to you for starting this, and it's very important, and this is our very first Poe of the year. Also, now tomorrow is we are celebrating our 101st anniversary of the All Sri Lanka Buddhist Congress, and at that celebration tomorrow, we are launching new programs. Also, we established a Buddhist Rights Commission 2 years ago, and the commission report will be announced tomorrow. So we are you cover a lot of our rights in that, and you will see the rights what we have to see about Buddhists and to how to secure and safeguard the rights, especially about our culture, education, our indigenous medicine, and even health sector, and so on. So I think it's very important for all of us to go through that document and try to secure the Buddhism in Sri Lanka as well as in the world. So and also to this program, I wish now there are more than 200 participants already linked to this program. It's a very encouraging figure, and I thank Professor Vattuvala and the Council for starting this program, and wish you all the best. Thero
Nissarana, thank you very much, Mr. Jagat Sumatipala. I think the important one of the Buddhist Rights Commission, which you mentioned, I am sure that will bring a lot of maybe good to Buddhists, but and also it is necessary to get the cooperation and assistance of everyone. So, as I said earlier, the moderator of this session would be Mr. Deepal Suryarachi. So, I will now invite him. As I said, he's someone who is very much well known, both in the Dhamma field as well as in the commercial field, because the commercial field is also very, very important. Because if we are Buddhism is going to be successful, we need to ensure that the commerce and trade also has to be successful, and many of the Buddhists would be able to be engaged and also benefit. So that's very, very important. I think as someone in the private sector, Mr. Deepal Suryarachi has played a very, very leading role. And also his book that he has written on the mindfulness program, where the inward bound for mindfulness. I am sure that he has a lot of in-depth knowledge, and I know that Venerable Maha Dhammajiva Maha Thero in fact told me that we should have Deepal for the session. So I'm very happy that he's been much recognized in this field, and let me now hand over the sessions to our moderator, Mr. Deepal Suryarachi.
Thank you, and Thero Sarnai, Professor Vattuvala, and the President, Mr. Matipala. It's a privilege and an honor to moderate this session. And the first presentation will be, as you have already heard, from the Most Venerable Udairiyagama Dhammajiva Maha Thero. I think you already know that he is the chief abbot of Nissarana Vanaya, and he has been a very serious meditation practitioner for more than 4 decades. But I think I now like to present him as the modern day, like a missionary. He plays a pioneering role in introducing mindfulness or sati back to our society. I think the average Buddhist in Sri Lanka would not know that sati means more than 7 days of the week. So he has been able to bring about a new interest in in mindfulness, and thanks to him, today thousands of students from different faiths and different ethnic groups have tasted the bliss of the value of the benefit of mindfulness. His Satipasala Foundation and the initiative has reached a significant number of people who otherwise wouldn't have experienced the benefit of mindfulness. So with that brief introduction, may I invite the Most Venerable Dhammajiva Thero to speak to us today on the topic, why the four foundations of mindfulness is called the direct path or the Ekayana Magga to final liberation and cessation of suffering. May I most respectfully invite Venerable Sir to give his sermon. Over to you, Bhante.
Thank you, Deepal, and thank you, Deepal. Thank you for all the panelists and the listeners. Should we start with administering 5 precepts?
That's right, Venerable. If we can do that.
Yeah.
So, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Please follow after me. Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinna dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinna dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu micchachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
කාමේසු මිච්ඡාචාරා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
මුසාවාදා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
මුසාවාදා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
සුරාමේරය මජ්ජ පමාදත්තානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
සුරාමේරය මජ්ජ පමාදත්තානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
තිසරණේන සද්ධින් පංචශීලං ධම්මං සාදුකං සුරක්ඛිතං කତ୍වා අපමාදේන සම්පාදේ තබ්බං.
ආම භන්තේ.
නමෝ තස්සේ භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්සේ. නමෝ තස්සේ භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්සේ. නමෝ තස්සේ භගවතු අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්සේ. ඒකායනෝ අයං භික්ඛවේ මග්ගෝ සත්තානං විසුද්ධියා ශෝක පරිද්දවානං සමතික්කමාය දුක්ඛ දෝමනස්සං අත්ථගමාය ඥායස්ස අධිගමාය නිබ්බානස්ස සච්චිකිරියාය යදිදං චත්තාරෝ සතිපට්ඨානාති තී. Dear Dhamma friends, the part that I recited is from the famous Sutta Pitaka or basket of discourses, specifically from the Majjhima Nikaya, middle and sayings. Of course, you find the same stock phrase in number of other books also. And this is quite relevant to the topic suggested by the ACBC. And it's a significant thing for we Buddhists to understand how and why the Buddha himself phrased the four foundations of mindfulness by 7 specific terms before giving the context, before giving the meaning of four foundations of mindfulness. So that is, according to my teachers, it is because to create special faith, special belief, those who are trusting and believing Buddha. So he, with his long journey, aeons of time, he experienced it and he wanted to share it with the humankind, and then phrase in such a way, he says, "O monks, this is the one and the only way for the purification of being." Of course, there are 6 more very deep and very advanced features or advantages and benefits of it, and it is enough if we can, if we are to understand even the very first one, the purification of the being. And when that come into being, you can understand it with the corona pandemic. We can understand the present political turmoil. We can understand with respect to the global warming. We can understand with respect to the mental and environmental pollution. So what does it mean by what does it mean by the purification of being? So that purification of being basically go into 2 sectors, the mind and the body. So whenever the body purification is concerned, it will go to the pharmaceutical industry. It will go to the soap business and all the kind of things. The Buddha is promoting that, or does that means together with the body, the mind. That is a spiritual part, that's a religious part. So when that come to being, why the people are searching other way? Why the people are beating on bush? Why the Buddhists are beating on bush? So we can understand how the beginning of the ACBC, what a critical time and what a great people contributed for the stage that we are performing. And at that time, 1956, I was born in 1952 and 56 maybe the Buddha Jayanti time, and it was a kind of a turmoil from the independence and after the foreign colonization, and they took the pioneering thing, and the present committee was up to the present committee it was conducted in such a pious thing. Exactly the way the Nissarana Vanaya, they started in 64 and monks resided in 67, and till today the basic idea was continuing, and the founders, I can think about their foresight to have the motto in this life itself. So once I become the competent authority of the Nissarana Vanaya, it happened myself as a monk to read the constitution and to see the term, the starting part of the constitution in this life itself. I was, after the Burmese training with the Sayadaw Pandita, his main teaching was labeled under the book, in this very life. So both of them are quite parallel. And even before my becoming a monk, even before I come to the Nissarana Vanaya, even before I go to the Burma, I had that idea, if such a ekayana magga or only direct path is available, why we beat on bush? And it is a kind of at a glance, appear like a sad story. But for the last 40 years, I would say 50 years, there was a huge changes in our society. And there is one book he analyzed in Sri Lanka, how is the evolution of Vipassana after the Buddha Jayanti. I think while he was conducting the research, it happened me to talk with him, and he says that before the Buddha Jayanti or after the Buddha Jayanti, there were 5 taboos, there were 5 misunderstandings in Sri Lanka, and he says everyone thought the meditation or Nibbana is for only monks. No, it is none of the lay people. So therefore they give the 4 requisites to the monks and expect factories of Sohan and Rahat factories from monks. That was in 56. And they thought all the monks, those who are dedicated for Ekayana Magga or this in this life itself, must have thorough understanding about the Tripitaka. Well versed in Tripitaka. Otherwise don't touch it. And you must be 100% the morally restrained. Otherwise impossible. And even if you are striving, nowadays Vipassana is impossible. You can do a little bit of samatha and only possible in the next Buddha. I don't know how much of you people believe on the Maitreya Buddha. And it's a point of sarcasm. And it was really touching. And I was thinking for the last 50 years, now you go to a meditation center, how much little monks are there for meditation? Majority are lay, majority are female. And understanding of the Tripitaka nowadays is very common and possible because you have the CDs to have whole CD in your pocket and you become a Tripitaka Dara. And you can have any access to this thing, so therefore it is not a hidden thing like a mantras in Hinduism or any secret book dedicated only for the recluse. And Tripitaka is available. And the Vinaya wise, you see the present day society. How much a monk can be solitude in the forest and maintain one's precepts. Leave aside the lay people. Because the being in the commercial world, Suraj Deepal knows, they are not concerned about the moral shame and the moral fear. Whole education is to create this commercial world. I don't know how much of we know the hidden agenda behind the present education. Educationist in Sri Lanka utterly fanning and facilitating the Western method. They never think about the meditation or anapana or sati or mindfulness as the one and only way. We have to learn physics, chemistry and all the scientists' names and the years. And I lost my 25 years to the prime time in my life reading behind these bloody fools. They have never heard about Buddha. They never refer to the Buddha. You come and see my library, personal library. I have went through all the books. Now, before taking the book, I understand, I see whether this fellow knows about the Buddha. They don't know. They don't know. So, with that kind of atmosphere, a person like me, born in a simple, medium-class house, and going through and come up to this kind of discussion and talking about the Ekayana Magga, we must be really thankful about the great founders. They kept it open. And we can proceed it. And ACBC, now they taken the trend towards the meditation, taken the trend towards discussion, taking the trend to the mindfulness, specifically mindfulness. I never believed. And myself in the Nissarana Vanaya, of course, is meant for that. And keep on practicing. As Deepal tried to mention, we are doing large-scale training in two. One thing is for the adults, that is 5-day, 7-day, 10-day retreats, and for the children. And there, it happened me to, as a founder, to interpret the mindful in such a way, not to make it a religious cult. It is meant for every the religion and belief and kind. So I just copied the American system. I just copied the British system. British Parliament already accepted the idea of mindfulness. They declared mindful nation 5 years before. And they have conducted about 30 years mindfulness as a subject in the schools. They have covered the education department, health ministry and the jurisdiction. And we are just following it. And imagine we had 2,600 years. They have only 26 years. And they are about to interpret terms. But we are the heritage. We monks have this heritage. So I am very happy to have hand in hand with the ACBC and some other organization to go into and just simply say, it is none of our innovations. Why can't we directly tell this? Why can't we directly quote the Buddha? Is the Buddha's this thing, declaration. And when that, if someone is not happy, it is none of our business. So when I am talking and showing this with Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, at the beginning, of course, he was not happy, thinking because mindfulness is a business today. It's a multi-billion business, and Dhammajiva, you also going to have this business mindfulness or business Buddhism. Then I told Bande, we do utterly volunteering, and I insist upon him making few videos, and then he asked, what about the other religious masters? I am very happy to declare we consulted each and every religion masters. Everyone try to understand the meaning of mindfulness, and they are searching through the Bible. They are searching through the Quran. They are searching through the Mahabharata, how much they have mentioned it. You won't believe, even in the Quran they have a term called Morhaba. But they don't know the meaning. Even our Sri Lankan Buddhists, they don't know the meaning of the sati. As Deepal said, they say, Santudanga Ruada Badada Praspanda Sikurada Sentuda is the sati. So now our duty to go into that, and therefore I will just give a practical guidance whenever it happens us to get a little time free, how to practice mindfulness. So after that giving guidance, I will invite you all to sit and have a practice about few minutes. So before that, let me have kind of a guided meditation. The mindfulness, when the Buddha presented, he first gave this phrasing, it's the one and the only way. And then he guarantee so much of results at the end of the discourse. And then he give 21 methods to put into practice. And all the 21 are equally appear in the Pali Tipitaka as well as the Sanskrit Tipitaka. But in the Sanskrit one, the Chinese version, the order is little change it seems. But our Pali one, the Tipitaka we call, starting with mindful breathing. And there he says, the Buddha says, you must have a micro and macro atmosphere conducive for mindfulness to set in. So he recommend who give the atmosphere, it must be in a forest. This is the biggest, best operation theater for this operation. Or sit under a tree. Or go to a solitude place. Solitude place means not mingle with sensuous pleasure seekers. And so we can understand we are in a solitude place. I am of course in a forest. So that is the macroclimate. And then the microclimate, he says we have 4 guardian postures. He says, the Buddha says, the best for the beginner is sitting posture. In the sitting posture, now the image of the Buddha appear like a symbol of meditation in all religion. Whenever you have that kind of a sitting posture, it indicates a meditation. It is a kind of a symbol for Buddhism and meditation. And when you are sitting like that, your structure of the body is appear like a pyramid. You find in Cairo. Or you find it like an ant hill. You may find it as a dagaba, and it is have the very sound basis, and then tapering up to the pinnacle. And when you are sitting like that, that is the best way of sitting without any cushion. Without any cushion you can sit. But of course, after 20-30 years of practice only, now I can sit full lotus or sit in such a cross-legged way. So if you are to give a beginning or trial or starting session, better sit quietly and calm and sit, and maybe a straight back chair, or maybe on a cushion, or maybe on the flat ground. When you are sitting, now you have assured with your merits and with your knowledge, you are sitting comfortably, and in atmosphere is good. If there are fellow meditators, still good. And once that is assured, you have to take the sight inside. Whenever eyes are open, we are outside. The inside, we call vipassana, is the introvert. So we being exposed to the scientific world, the difference between science and the Buddhism is, science is always outwardly, using microscope and the telescope and all the kind of thing, extra. And the Buddhism, or the Buddha, or the mindfulness is introvert, but still the same technique. So you are focusing in. For that, even if it is not clearly mentioned in the book, the best thing is to close your eyes. When you are closing eyes, that your body becomes your world. Of course, it is for the trained people. Otherwise, daydreaming, fantasizing and wandering mind can happen. But it is not a crime. It is norm. So when you are sitting, and if you understand, simple task of mindfulness is, you are aware, here, now, I am sitting. That's it. That's it. Each thought moment, you are with your body, and you can see, if you can feel, you are sitting symmetrically. You are not tighten your legs and the limbs and all the kind of thing. You can understand, here, now, I am sitting. To make that more emphatic, I would say, whether you are young or old, or rich or poor, learned or not, monk or a lay person, you can understand simply, I am not dead. That's a sign to say you are living. And there's a very clear sign, I am not sleeping. Mind is awake. And the third one is, it is not unconscious. I am conscious, I am mindful. So whenever you come to the sitting posture, of course in the other postures also it is the same. When you come to the sitting posture, the thought moment you understand, here, now I am sitting. I am not dead, I am not sleeping, I am not unconscious. And that very thought moment I definitely call as a birthright. It is nothing I have to introduce. The whole talk and the whole Satipatthana is to catalyze the same thing. So therefore, whatever the thing you are listening, all the instruction, you are born with mindfulness. I am repeating. You are born with mindfulness. The Buddha mentioned the Satadipateya Sabbe Dhamma. The whole governing principle of the phenomena is nothing but mindfulness. So I myself, to verify it, we must have that kind of a chunk of time, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, be with myself and sit and experience it. And then that experience, the very experience is the datum line of our humanity. Whenever you are skipping that, you are no more a human. You are emotionally maybe the past or future, thinking about the other people and other places, and you will appreciate it, telling it is full of compassion, full of metta, full of economic and full of politicals and full of social. But you miss the bus. You simply miss the bus. So therefore, even if it is introduced, how much, what a little proportion will sustain it. How a little proportion can appreciate it and sustain it. So, never mind. We are in the minority. No problem. And as far as the thought moment of mindfulness is concerned, we can experience it under your very nose immediately. No time gap. No time gap. So, there is nothing mystic. Therefore, it is scientific. That is called verifiable. So I invite all to share with me. We'll go for 5 minutes of silent sitting and observe here, now I am sitting. Of course, when you are practicing like that, if you are a familiar person, sometimes you will feel the pressure of your body touching the seat or the ground. Or you may feel in-breath and out-breath at your nostril level or chest. Or you may feel how the expansion happen as the in-breath happen to your clothes and the out-breath happen, relaxation happen. So these are little clues. They appear like a Buddhist, but just understanding of being here is, that is nothing to, nothing special, nothing mystic. Everyone can understand. So I am going to ring a bell. And we are going to have 5 minutes of observation, of mindfulness, so just being. So please join us. Thank you. Thank you very much for the cooperation. So I will continue with the talk, and now those who are participating effectively have little bit of understanding. Of course, I know many of you have deep experiences, but this is just for the sake of beginners. So when we are practicing this kind of mindfulness, whenever mind becomes mindful, how the purification happens? This is a kind of a challenging question. So even though we find fault with the Western education and the God-believing curriculum, but they have this kind of a question: when you are practicing mindfulness, what are the structural changes happening in the brain, at least? Leave aside the mind. And lucky enough, they have 40 years of experience of understanding how mindfulness is working with the prefrontal lobes of our brain. And they say when you are mindful, you are no quick reaction. Mind is pausing little bit and it can make a wise decision. And left side of your brain is doing the mathematical and systematical calculation, and the right side of your brain is concerned about the system approach, aesthetic part of your brain, and education is killing the right side, and it is only promoting left side is utterly end up with frustration and tension. And that is also a kind of a rough discovery of the neuroscience. And they say, even though that is the case, we are utterly in a rut. We are always developing the left side, and no concern in the present education about the right side. So they wanted to find to have that kind of an effect to the balancing of the left and the right, the system approach and reductionist theory, how much you must meditate. They asked it from His Holiness Dalai Lama. He told, it is very simple. 10,000 hours of continuous meditation. So Americans can't think about 10,000 hours. Then Dalai Lama says, our population, more than 1% is already done the task. They are beyond it because they are all lamas. So in Sri Lanka, we have no data. But they found, at least at the beginning with their rough estimates, they found you have to have 3 months continuous retreat, then only changes can happen. What is the change? Change is attention shift from the left brain to right brain. That means you become an aesthetic person, you become a system approach, you feel about the world you are living. That is the point where I need all Ceylon Buddhist Congress. They have introduced that into the growth, into the sustainable growth in United Nations number 17. So I asked Jagat, take this message from Sri Lanka to the UN, because they have drafted it without the term mindfulness. And further, they are experimented, they have found in the center of the brain, there is a amygdala, that is our reptilian brain. We can chew living animal and then taste it. That is the reptilian mind. And that is take a quick decision, immediate reaction. So with meditation, that is shrinking. And hippocampus is the part taking the memory and other cumulative this thing, and that is also increasing. So they can measure it now. They have done micro retreats, 6 minutes inside the functional MRI scan, and then see how different meditation can change the brain and circuits. And they invented the neuroplasticity. It is not a hardwired thing what is the God created. Earlier they thought after 6 years everything is decided by the omnipotent, omnipresent God, that is the creator, we creatures. But now mindfulness gave such an idea about the purification. It is up to you, that is if you are living in the present moment. So they had a very great relationship with the mind, brain and the neurosciences. But recently they invented further, they told, even in the cell level, genetic level, each and every the chromosome. They have RNA, DNA, their combination is changing. Epigenetically, they are reducing the chromosome cap, whereby you won't go senile, old age quickly. More you practice, you will be rejuvenated. So therefore, each and every cell, you can feel mindfulness. So how we meditators, from the traditional point of view, make sure or verify whether I am mindful or not. So therefore, two aspects you have to understand. One thing is the set of information, how to start the macro and microclimate and give the conducive condition. The second thing is verification. How do you know mind is just daydreaming or fantasizing or here and now? So that verification aspect we can easily get the scientific education. When you are breathing in and out, when you are not listening, hearing and thinking, you can understand what is happening at the nostril, what is happening at the top of your lip. Uttarotte nasikage. So how many breaths you can follow? Or whenever in-breath happen, how the expansion happening and contraction happening within your clothing, and that is also verifiable. And the third aspect, if I am to talk a little bit on the sitting, your body weight. The breath and the rising and falling is a wave pattern. You are sitting and the pressure on your cushion is a flat rate. So different people talk about that. And imagine a girl or a boy at the age 5, they can explain. They can explain. They are much, much better than elderly people. And Lakshman mentioned today is significant in coming the Buddha into Sri Lanka for the first time. He went to Mahayangana. So a few days ago, I went to Mahayangana and Dhamma. I had a very good relationship with the Vaniletto. And he has published more than 2 A4 papers, his view. I am very happy to share with you. And he says, shall we talk, shall we tell directly to our children, we elderly people are idiots. And directly we have to tell, they are very fresh. And then I ask you, okay, now you have come to the point. Would you mind to recommend Satipasala? So he put a note and sign, tell him, Bande, I give the full-fledged, please come monthly and give our Kakula and Kakuli, the youngsters, at least if one person can understand, that I appreciate. So that is another significant part. Even the Vedda fellows or aboriginals, they can understand it. And the top class, I went to CIBA, Ceylon Institute of Buddhist Academic. They are very happy to introduce mindfulness as a diploma, degree and a PhD. That is the high class. And even in the universities, we can introduce. So therefore, this purification is very, very important. Most prominent aspect in purification is the verification. So our faith at the beginning is just unfounded faith. But when you are practicing, it becomes verifiable faith. That won't take much years. The Buddha says maximum 7 years. So I had a great question. How, if it is only 6, maximum 7 years, what must be the basic qualifications? So when I was in Nilambe, I was repeatedly asking, because at that time I had no morality. I was a angry young man, just after the university, and I am ready to break any precepts. Whatever you are going to say, I would say, I am the person going to hell, don't talk about. So I have a great heritage of akusala karma, more than you gentlemen. And then when I am asking, they tell no problem, opening balance, whatever it may be. Now I am telling directly, to start purification, there are no basic qualification. I say, therefore, never too late. Never too late. And that purification starts thought by thought, moment by thought moment. So now the Western scientific criterion they have developed, each and every thought moment how much you are contributing towards the global cooling, not global warming. How much you reduce the consumption of oxygen. How much you can reduce the internal and external pollution. And many, specifically I had the criticism, you are a product of present day free education, and now you are going to the forest and you are seeking only your liberation, and therefore it is unfair. I am not doing any social work. I am just a burden to the lay people, because I am expecting all the food, lodgings, the robes and medicine, all for them, but I am very happy, I am at home all the time. But you all people, those who are providing for requisite, be at home whenever you are mindful. No any authority need, no any qualification necessary. Of course, there should have a little bit of instructions. And when that happens, how, before going to the Nibbana or before going to the balance of the 7 benefits, how one can detect, how one can understand whether I am progressing or not. It's very simple with respect to the present amount of tension and frustration. Whenever you sit comfortably and doing nothing, how much the tension is reducing, how much the frustration is reducing. For that, Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, introducing this rising and falling system, he says, the very first moment you become mindful, you can't verify that very moment. You have to have consecutive 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 like thought moments. That chunk of the thought moments only you can understand with respect to your day-to-day aspect. There's a kind of a relief. And imagine 5 seconds, imagine 5 minutes, imagine 1 or 2 hours sitting and try to be mindful. They need no any kind of a scientific proof. You to understand how much mind is at rest, at home. So that irrespective of the country or belief or kind of thing, easily one can prove it, and they are giving their testimonies. I started that collecting of testimonies. I have huge amount of writing, just like writing from blood like. This is I met up with the cancer, I met up with the accident, and I went for such and such operations and kind of thing, and unconscious, but still the mindfulness is working. And we also got down some ECG machines, and we also got down some brainwave starters. So now we are giving it to the meditators. We can check your brain for 30-40 minutes. And then you can understand what kind of waves is emitting. Enormous. The results are so quick, unbelievable. So therefore, when it is happening, the sustainability of mindfulness, I find it is self-sustained. When you keep on practicing, it is like an addiction. It is like a corona. It is a contagious. So you can directly tell your family members, you can direct your friends, and directly you can take all the visitors and just come and see. It is such a vivid thing. And therefore, whenever you are giving some valuables or dowry or any asset to your children, nothing like this purification of the mind. But I am very sorry about the present generation. They never understood it. They are giving 5-figure or 6-figure dowry or money or this and that, and ultimately they don't know how to handle it. But if you can give little bit of this thing, the purification of the mind, just a glimpse. Don't think that you must be an expert on the professor level, but just a glimpse, and ask their feedback, and you won't believe. We have so much of things we are now accumulating and giving, and lucky enough, the whole education system, 45 lakhs of children will be recommended with mindfulness. When the periods are changing from one to the other, ministry is going to decide 5 to 3 minutes mindful break. And each week, 1 hour, that means 2 periods. Mindfulness as a subject. And 10 minutes at the school, beginning, give mindful activity. Of course, we tried about sitting and how to practice mindfulness. It's quite doing nothing and be mindful. But my trump card is not that. My trump card in Satipasala is to do walking meditation. Each and every Pirivana in the Sri Lanka now decided to put up a Sakmana in their center. Now not a single temple in the world. They have a big loudspeakers. They have big tower to make noise. And so much of the Vesak pandals and all the kind of thing. But no place, lucky enough, the Bodhimalua is fairly still secured. And so these things we can introduce slowly and then go into a Sakmana or the walking path and you see unimaginable, just bare foot is touching the earth. It is called earthing. Your body becomes earth and then tension will be reduced. That's why we are very happy to go to beach. And we are happy to go to the garden or a park because we can walk on the lawn. And what about having a sakmana or walking path for each and every household in Sri Lanka? And you go to the old meditation center, everywhere they have spent so much of time, precision about the walking path. And now we are introducing it because children and the elderly people and drug addicted people, cancer patients and street children and all the kind of cornered people, while we are walking, they understand this is left leg, this is right leg. When you are closing eyes, of course, they may be frustrated. That is what the people mention in the magazine Bandhanagara in Colombo. This is monks are coming and with the vatat in their hand and giving sermons and asking us to close our eyes and do meditate. What to tell Bhante? We have killers. We have capital punishment in our mind. So how can we close our eyes? So it won't work. But today, Bhante, with you, we walked. And then when I'm keeping the left leg, I know it is left leg. You say it is mindfulness. And then to the right leg. Only 4 legs, Bhante, 4 steps, I start crying. That I am a capable person for mindfulness. So they feel purification much, much, much better than Samaritans. Much, much, much better than the people living in the good morality. So therefore, if we wish to pass the message to these deprived people, so I would invite ACBC to have that kind of a countrywide as well as the Lakshman to have international wise. We'll continue this discussion and my time is passing. And lucky enough with the first this talk, you all have recognized it. Thanks to the Deepal. So I am going to sum up my talk today and welcome you to be mindful and share with us and ACBC to have that stage open for all the mindful families to get together or call for a forum. And I am going to suggest the government that second day of the Vesak day as the mindful day. Mindful Desyak Kara Satipasala Mehiyuma. So I need everyone's support. I am going to make that suggestion. Before that, I have to make the education department with the taken for a ride and wave and definitely go. Your task is to bring it to the UN. If you are ready to challenge the challenge, I am going to stop my talk. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Deepal, you're muted. Deepal, you're muted.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Bhante, for that very enlightening presentation. And you really ignited the fire in many of us. And there are more questions that you opened and bold invitation. So before we get into Q&A, may I please invite Venerable Chandaratana Thero, Pandure Chandaratana Thero. Let me formally introduce him. I think he is an excellent example of a person who has explored cutting-edge science and technology and now embarked on the ultimate science, having heeded the Buddha's advice of noble experiment, Arya Pariyesana. He, in his lay life, he has graduated from the finest university in Sri Lanka, Moratuwa, as an electrical engineer. Then he obtained his master's in computer science. Then he very successfully worked in different organizations in Sri Lanka, Singapore, and even in USA in the technical field. So now I think he has, after becoming a monk in 2008, under the Most Venerable Agamaha Pandita Nayuni Aryadhamma Thero, he has started far more deeper, more electrifying experiences in meditation. And now he is with, after returning from Burma, he is with our Most Venerable Udayiriyagama Dhammajiva as the Deputy Abbot of the Nissarana Vanaya. And he has been conducting meditation retreats regularly. And I'm sure we are in for a very interesting and an enlightening half an hour with Venerable Panadure Chandaratana Thero on how to integrate mindfulness into the busy lives of today. Over to you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you have found an interesting sort of title for me. So integrating mindfulness for busy lives. So I like to pay homage to Buddha and then start my session. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa
bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friend. So as you know, my teacher has given a fair introduction about mindfulness, and I like to share screen on something I have prepared so that it may be much easy for everyone, and all are in the sort of new age of technology, and now we are actually dealing with the technology, and we are actually meeting today also via technology, and now everything become technology. So as Mr. Deepak mentioned, now actually I have walked through many technological aspects, and it's in a way coming back to Buddha's words and having a robe and then guiding on to mindfulness path is a really interesting task. So now the task in my hand is to take you back to the Buddha's words. So it is interesting as mentioned, and basically I like to deal with three areas, basically starting with how we can integrate mindfulness at home. Now we have different apps, we have different phones, we have different technological gadgets with us. Now when you start with your day, so don't start with that. So basically you wake up, don't start checking your emails, don't start checking your WhatsApp or whatever the other things. Just mindfully wake up from your bed. So basically, the mindfulness practice helps us to come back to ourselves. So it is not that we are trying to go back to the old ages, but we are trying to integrate mindfulness to our busy lives. And even with these technical advancements. Now, suppose you are now waked up and you are away from your phone, away from internet, away from any of those gadgets, but you are with yourself. Basically, you can open your eyes mindfully. You can feel yourself. And then suppose you are moving to your washing room and you can do a mindful walking. Few steps you are there and you are mindfully walking there. And suppose you are taking your brush, you are taking your toothpaste, you can do it mindfully. And then suppose you are brushing your teeth, you can do it mindfully. And various things are there. If I were to explain few steps there, suppose the smell of the toothpaste, how it is felt at your tongue, how saliva coming to your tongue, to your mouth, and how you are doing the brushing of your teeth, how fresh you feel, and how spitting you, and likewise various tasks sort of involved in this brushing of teeth, you can do mindfully. Actually, if we are telling that we don't have time to do mindful practice, and all those are actually not really true, it is the sort of the intention that what it is most important, that if we really need to practice, if we really like to practice, there are enough time available. So that's what I am trying to emphasize through my sermon. Here, say once you are waking up, so you are going to your washroom and you are doing brushing of the teeth mindfully. Now suppose you do a little exercise, you can do mindfully. Say you are stretching your limbs, you can do mindfully. And you are watching around, you can do mindfully. And you can listen to the environment also mindfully. Suppose you are waking up a little early and there may be sort of chirping of the birds and then little noise coming from here and there. Slowly, you are waking up. Slowly, you are adjusting yourself. And basically, with these little techniques, you are being aware. Now you are living. You are in this present moment. You are not in a daydream. You are not in a past. You are not in the future. But rather, you are wake up to this moment. You are living in this moment. Now, suppose you are at home during the weekend. So don't please do so much of work holistic time. Rather, you try to be mindful. You spend some time for yourself. Try to be with your friends. Try to be with your children. So likewise, basically, you need some time for yourself. So you may be spending a lot of time at your office, but during the weekend, try to be with yourself. Try to be with your, say, members of your family. And then suppose if there is enough space in your garden, so try to be with a tree, try to walk through the trees, try to walk through a jungle. So likewise, you can actually be with the environment, be with the nature. Actually, that really helps you to calm down. As Bhante mentioned, you try to walk barefoot so that you are well connected to the Mother Earth. It is really beautifully mentioned that you are walking like kissing the earth, basically connected to the Mother Earth, and you are walking through the bushes, you are walking through the garden, you are walking through each and every tree. Maybe even you can touch these trees. And so likewise, basically you can calm down yourself, you can connect with the nature, and you can be happy that you got an opportunity to connect with the nature. You got an opportunity to breathe while there are so many challenges. Still we are living, still we are coping up the situation. So likewise, we can have something to glad with. And then basically, suppose you are being in the internet, being in the phone, at your, say, television. So as much as possible, see why you are watching it. Is it really necessary? Is it really, are you being caught up in that news article? Are you being caught up with that, whatever the film or whatever the documentary or whatever the program going on? Because sometimes nowadays people are fairly addicted to these technological gadgets. So many instruments are there at your home. So unknowingly, we become a victim of their sort of advertising, and we are losing our important time. We are losing our important time to be with our kids, be with our children, be with our parents, be with our friends. We are very much, actually, because of today's COVID pandemic, we are restraining ourselves, we are restricted ourselves. But on top of that, if we are too much involved with, say, screen, then that also have a negative impact on ourselves. So we have to think a little bit about how much time that we are spending in our time on with the screen, with our phone, with our smartphone. So these are, in a way, today in this, with these technological advancements, even though of course they are giving enough kind of benefit to ourselves, they have some negative impact as well. Now there are a lot of news channels. Don't simply watch again and again, don't simply carried away by them. Have a little time for only to watch the news. Basically, there are bombarding of news today, But if you simply sort of a victim of those news channels, then again you become really depressed. There are so many news channels, so many information coming up, and if we too many involved with that, so then we don't have enough time for ourselves. And suppose now you are traveling by a car or you are traveling by a bus. So those are the other environments that we can introduce mindfulness. Now assume that you are a working person. Now you have to drive a car to your working place. Now while driving, you have to be really mindful. It is not that you are completely unmindful at the moment, but we can improve your mindfulness while driving, because there are a lot of vehicles passing by, there are a lot of threatening situations, and at that time definitely you have to be mindful. And on the other hand, suppose you have a vehicle and you are now driving, basically at that time try to paste a little note, be mindful. These are very little techniques actually, because what happens is constantly we forgot to be mindful. It is not that we don't want to be mindful, but constantly we forgot to be mindful. But in such situation, it is better have a little note mentioned maybe on the buffer or maybe on the mirror, so that which is something always you are looking at. So there you simply paste a little label telling be mindful. Each watch, each attention you are paying there, you are sort of coming back to this world. You are sort of coming back to this moment, connected to this moment, and you know where you are. You know that now you are driving a vehicle, you know you are at this particular place. So it's time to time, we have to remind ourselves to be mindful, because it's a kind of a practice which requires certain amount of attention, certain amount of coming back to this moment. So this sort of reminding is really interesting and really important. Otherwise, simply we being driven by the habit, and we may be thinking about various things happens in the past, and we maybe think about what's going to happen in the future. So likewise, we are sort of driven by our old habits. But this kind of a little note we are having at our vicinity helps us to remind ourselves again and again, come back to this moment. And say, suppose now you are at color lights, and sometimes we start to blame the others, we start to panic, we start to agitate our minds, we become impatient. So rather than doing that, so consider this color light is a kind of a indication, sort of an indication given for me to be mindful. So rather than you develop some sort of an anxiety, you simply be mindful. You can simply close your eyes, and even a couple of seconds, you can come back to yourself. You can simply come back to yourself and pay attention to your posture. So those are very little things. Does not consume time. Actually, while you are driving, there may be such many places that you may have to pass through. And once you reach the color lights, so you can simply be very mindful. And again, you can take a mindful breath. And this boredom that you feel at that time, don't spend on to something else. Don't go and look at your phone. Rather, be with yourself, what you can feel. What are the things happening outside? And what are the things you can listen at this moment? So while driving, we are now in a particular place and given a sort of a pause. And at that time, certainly you can spend some time in mindfulness practice. Now, suppose you are traveling by bus. So there you don't have to pay much attention on driving or some certain other things. You have your private space. You have some time for yourself. So you can simply, if you like, you can close your eyes and try to be mindful onto your posture, maybe to your breathing. And you can do a really mindful practice. If the journey is fairly long, you can do a real mindfulness practice. On the other hand, suppose if you are traveling by a bus, probably you can listen to certain sounds as well. Of course, sometimes busy noise is available that we can't avoid, but at least we can, rather than sort of complaining about it, if we have a sort of a accepting mind, rather than rejecting mind, rather than resisting mind, that also actually helps. Most of the time, today's sort of stress and tension happens because of this resistance coming from our mind. We are always resisting the present moment. We are always resisting the present experience. So if we are developing sort of an attitude to acknowledge it, to accept it, this is the way it is. I can simply be mindful with this present situation. So that actually opens up ourselves. Rather than sort of fighting with the present situation, we are accepting it and we are trying to be mindful with it. And that actually gives a lot of courage in ourselves to deal with the present situation, to cope up the situation. And on the other hand, while get down the vehicle, suppose you are getting down the bus, so you have to be really mindful, because otherwise the other people maybe come and hit with you. So at that time you have to be really mindful when you are getting down the vehicle, when you are stopping the vehicle, when you are getting down the bus. So you have to be really mindful. So remember these little points. Basically these junctions are the various places that actually we can improve even clear comprehension. Mindfulness coupled with clear comprehension take us a long journey. So if we are able not only to be mindful, but be aware of what is really going on at these post junctions, that actually helps us to further enhance our mindfulness, further sort of strengthen our mindfulness coupled with clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. And assume that you have a certain distance to walk from the bus halt or wherever it is, maybe even the car park, to your working place. So at that time, just be a mindful walking. So there are several steps to walk, and at that time you can do a mindful walking. Sometimes we may be finding out the most closest place to get down. You are finding out the most closest car parking slot. Rather doing that, how about getting down a little bit far? Then you have some distance walk. Nowadays, people are having a lot of issues on health because they don't have time to spend on themselves. Therefore, rather than finding the most closest place, you can get down a little bit before the place, before your office, and maybe you can have a mindful walk. You can enjoy the environment. So when your mind is fairly clean, fairly clear, when you have a unentangled mind, you can actually enjoy the whole environment. You can experience the whole environment. Rather than you partially and narrowed mind experience the world, if you have an open environment, open mind, then actually you can be with the others, you can open to the environment. Now, suppose you are now going to the office, and there, suppose you are at the office. Now I am taking you to the office environment. There, assume if you are able to park your vehicle at a distant place, you can, as I said, you can do a mindful walking. Suppose you are coming by bus, then actually you can get down from a little distance and you can do a mindful walking. And suppose you are with others, you are now with the colleagues, you can have a little word with them. Then showing a sort of a grumpy face, have a little smile with others, so that you are connecting with others. Because sometimes, because of today's COVID pandemic, we are being so restricted to very limited numbers, only to our family members. But in case if you have a time to deal with another person, make it a kind of a blessing rather than sort of complaining. It's a kind of a blessing to be with other human being. So you are opening up, you have a very open mind, and at that time you have a pleasant smile, and you say hello, or you say good morning, or you ayubowan, whatever it is. You do a mindful greeting, and you are with a pleasant mind, you are going to the office. And now suppose you are dealing with your computer, you may be talking to another person, or maybe you are doing some other work, maybe banking sector, whatever it is. Nowadays, because of the technological advancement, you have so many computer-related work. Assume that you are in a computer-related network. Assume that you have to deal with a lot of screen time. So at that time, don't at a stretch do your work. Time to time, take a pause. Say, for example, you have to deal with some documents, maybe writing, maybe reading, maybe thinking, maybe designing, maybe planning, whatever it is. So rather than continuously at a stretch that you are doing it, maybe once an hour, take a little break. Just close your eyes and come back to yourself. Feel yourself. Where am I? Where are my hands? Where are my legs? How is my clothing? Where I can feel really? What are the sounds coming from the outside? So in a way, we are breaking that vicious cycle. Typically, when during the office environment, most probably we may be in a sort of a created environment, kind of a conceptual environment. But time to time, please, coming back to ourselves, earthing ourselves, feeding ourselves, understanding the present moment actually gives a sort of a breakthrough. Sort of time to time, we are breaking the cycle so that we are earthing ourselves. We are breaking that vicious cycle. So time to time, we are being mindful. So this is possible also. And again, suppose now you are in a tea break. At that time, rather than simply thinking this and that and having your tea, how about really enjoying the tea? How about really tasting it? What are the tastes available in that tea? Is it really hot? Is it with excess sugar? Or is it with less sugar? So likewise, you can really do a little mindful drinking or mindful eating. So during this little break, maybe a tea break. So at that time, you can really enjoy it, as well as you can sort of come out of that so hard work or so, say, energy consuming work, and you can really enjoy yourself. Come back to the present moment. And again, suppose you are now going to have a meal, say your lunch break. So at that time also, you can do a real mindful eating. So these are not really away from you. Actually, that is why Buddha not only helps us to come up with these solutions, but he actually expands mindful experience to all the daily activities. He doesn't say that you only have to sit and do the mindful practice. He doesn't say you have to walk and only do the mindfulness practice. Rather, he expands mindfulness practice throughout the day, from the very moment that you wake up till the moment that you go to sleep. Each and every activity, if you like, you can do mindfully. Say now you are at the lunch break, you can really enjoy your meal. And suppose you are taking your, say, lunch box, you are opening it and you are feeling the sort of smell, and say now you open it and now you are mixing various vegetables, various curries, various food, and now you are taking it to your mouth and you are feeling the taste. Now you are swallowing it. So these are very little actions that you can do mindfully. Actually, remember, all the mindfulness practices are very simple. So we may have a very sort of a big picture in our mind, very complicated picture in our mind. But when it comes to the practice, all these simple techniques take us to very clean mind, very clear mind. So Buddha's teaching has that beauty where his practice, his teaching, once we are putting into practice, we have to start with very simple things. So these simple techniques, these simple methods take us to very profound understanding. And now assume that you have to do a lot of work, lot of hard work. Nowadays, maybe people are doing overtime and so many things are there. But at least time to time, have a stopping cue. So don't sort of stress yourself too much. Time to time, have a stopping cue. At that time, don't look at the screen or don't look at the sort of your book or whatever the journal that you're handling. Just have a little break. Just have a little breath. Maybe a deep breath, holding it for a second, and then slowly relax yourself. Again, take a deep breath, holding it for a second, and mindfully exhale. So these are, in a way, very beautiful and very subtle techniques, very simple techniques, helping us to introduce mindfulness to ourselves. So what is necessary is not really the time. What is really necessary is the intention. It is the sort of the encouragement what you need at the moment. So with this kind of an encouragement, if we are trying our best to be mindful, there are enough possibilities are available even today. Don't think that we have to go back to the Buddha's time or we need to come every time to the monastery or forest to practice mindfulness. If you are really skillful, you can practice mindfulness at any place. Of course, if you want to do a really long, deep practice, definitely the best environment is to come into a forest or going for a retreat. But anyway, rather than allowing your energy to really dissipate, you can at least protect your energy, at least protect your mindfulness practice, protect your concentration, protect your attention by introducing here and there, again and again, coming to this mindfulness practice, urging yourself, coming back to yourself and reminding yourself that I have to be mindful. I have to be free from all these external environment and just coming back to yourself. So these are a few points that I like to share with you. And with that, I like to conclude my little presentation. And now I like to take the opportunity to going for the next session.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante, for that very beautiful presentation using some slides. When a certain Zen monk was asked, "Sir, I don't have time to meditate." Then he said, "All right, okay. Then you must meditate all the time." And Venerable Chandaratana very beautifully gave us so many opportunities to come to this moment and to practice mindfulness. And he beautifully reminded that in the Satipatthana Sutra itself, Buddha covers the whole spectrum of life, including going to the toilet, wearing our clothes and everything. So thank you very much, Bhante, for that. And we have another half an hour for Q&A. And I would like to share some of very interesting questions that have come on the chat, which you can use to raise some questions. The first question, I hope Venerable Dhammajiva Thero is also online. He's muted his mic, Venerable Dhammajiva. Bhante, are you there? I'll pose the question. It's a very interesting question, Bhante.
Yes.
One of our participants has written, when I keep practicing walking, and sometimes without my knowledge, suddenly answers to some of the questions that I have been having in my mind pops up because my mind becomes very clear. So this person asks, is it okay to stop my walking and go down and write that answer? I think this is a very common experience those who practice mindfulness discover. Bhante, with your deep insights and the practice guide, what would you suggest when you are practicing walking meditation or sitting meditation, when your mind is quiet, suddenly answers to some of those questions that you have been worried about would appear? What should you do?
So that if I am to quote Karl Marx, one day he has written a letter to his daughter. It is not published data. He says that I am such a freedom now I am in, and I am just pacing up and down in my walking path. I feel like a forest monk practicing meditation. You see what the kind of connection they would have happened, and with that only they are writing their Karl Marx theory. All the scientists never found anything in the lab. They have found while walking up and down. Because that is the point where you get relaxed. So therefore, whenever it happens, you have either way. Either to go to the factual, logical thinking, or to continue with the normal mindfulness. So whenever such a thing happened, when I was practicing, I used to do writing it and have a kind of a small note about, because it's a kind of a logical arrangement of the facts. And otherwise, you are just simple doing walking meditation. So this kind of logical arranging of the facts happen whenever the mind become at home. So therefore, it is kind of a agenda. No, not the agenda. I would say directed disposition in your character trait. So you can understand when the mind become calm down. So all the facts become comprehensive kind of understanding. You can write it. But later, when you are advancing, you may see these all things you're coming across your mind is political, economical and social. They are advancement. But the calm mind...
Bhante, we are losing you.
My mic is okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We lost from the point that where you say when the world economic something you started saying.
All the points coming through meditation, coming through walking is politically interesting, economically interesting and social interest. They will never leading to Nibbana. And the mindfulness is simple, nothing, and it is leading to Nibbana. So if you are a politically motivated person, you can write and script and all the kind of thing. But later, when you keep on practicing, you will understand they are utterly disturbing you. They are very prolific, very lucrative thoughts, but always leading to away from Nibbana. Once you come up to the Bojjhanga level, never they arise. Bojjhanga means your mindfulness is directed to the emancipation. Till that mindfulness has a four foundation mindfulness, has a faculty, sati indriya, sati bala, they are always mingle with this other economical gains. So you can use it, no problem. But once you come up to the Bojjhanga, the mind will never compromise for this kind of worldly matters, and till that it is not a crime. Definitely you can use it. But you have to give the attribution to the clarity of the mind, at home feeling. So that's the best you can do. Never in the universities in world, never give that kind of a course. They make their mind, not the hair krail, but your brain you become krail. Your brain become krail. So that is the universities are. The Buddha's way is universal thing. When the mind become, and if I am to quote Madam Montessori, she says each and every child born with the idea, I'll be the world conqueror. That means just like a Prince Siddhartha born with Aggo Hamasmi Lokasmi Jettuan. So we have the whole potential. So what these striking parts are, politically, socially and economically important thing, but the atmosphere is the base. The base is the important. So keep on continuing, keep notes, and you can understand your character traits and the person have directed dispositions. But you must always understand at the theoretical maximum, it's a distraction. But no hope, right. No problem. You can just keep notes and study yourself.
Right. Thank you, Bhante. It was a very, very enlightening answer. I would like to go to the second question also to you, Bhante. It's a very important question. How to deal with grief and sorrow using mindfulness? This person asks, will practicing of mindfulness lessens grief and sorrow? Of course, the Satipatthana Sutra immediately promises that this is the ending of all types of suffering. So how to practice mindfulness as beginners when we are confronted with situations of grief and sorrow, Bhante?
So there I would like to quote Sigmund Freud. He says if you can't deal with the day-to-day unsatisfactoriness, you will end up with hysteric level of trauma. So you have to first start with the grief and sorrow. It's a day and part and parcel of the daily life. So people think leading panic and the thinking of them because they think the grief should not come. You must put up...
Professor Lakshman, you need to mute your mic. Bhante, I got disturbed. Can you come back from the point where you say the ordinary... we need to accept that,
so that
grief
is a part
and sorrow is part of our day-to-day thing.
Of life. So present day people are so moved and disturbed and highly sensitive. They do not know how to handle with the normal grief and the sorrow. And when you are put up with that, accepting with the normal, the hunger, the heat, cold and kind of thing, your immunity level, your resistance level is slowly increasing. You are not making complain about the small variations in the good and the bad, climatic kind of thing. So monk's life is an ideal life for that, because we have to depend upon others. But when you are giving so much of amenities and kind of thing, even for a little thing you can't tolerate. So therefore, whenever it is happening, it is come under the common sense rather than the mindfulness and the meditation, but the comprehension, that is called sati sampajanya. When it comes into being, it is maintaining the mindfulness between two postures, two moods and two objects, like changing from the sorrow to the happiness, and the lamentation and grief to the elation. So you understand how to maintain the balance. And once you go further, grief, if you can see through the beginning, the middle and the end, always end up with the happiness. Any painful feeling, end of the painful feeling is happiness. But we are so grief and we never go to the end. Halfway we start crying and asking the people and pray God and all the kind of thing. So just be up to the point, because you have paid the cost, but you have failed to understand the benefits because you are not going to the end. So when we are mindfully, we make some trouble to others in Nissarana projects. And then when they are complaining, we say, just wait and go to the end. And the end of the grief is that. So they are not Buddhist concepts. They are universal concepts. Grief and this thing end up with happiness. So therefore, just wait. Rabbit, you just wait. And you can see. So therefore, Burmese says, whenever you are ivasanna nivandaki, whenever you become patient, you are going to get the ripened food. You are not eating sour fruit. So mindfulness is continuity of the mindfulness, sustainability. You ask you to not to declare this as bad or good. They will be changing the mood. They will be changing the tone. And that changeover, that turning point, many consider as very serious. I don't think it is serious, because young children can understand it, but elderly people with the rut in a square mind, very difficult. So therefore, not only it is you are putting up with certain amount of grief and kind of thing, but as you continue, you can see each and everything has a balance. Start negative, end up with positive. Start suffering, end up with pleasure. So likewise, wait one moment more, and then you will see the better part of it.
It reminds me that saying, that famous quotation which says, this too will pass.
Yeah, this too will pass, yeah.
Yeah, this will change.
So how is your mentality now after the Nanda Mama all gone for the corona?
Yeah, it's changing, no? When you are in a crisis, you think this is the end of everything, and you think it is so overwhelming. But as you very rightly said, if you have a little patience to see, you can see the grief itself takes different forms. You know, it changes. It doesn't stay in the same intensity.
People, there are 2-3 questions on Q&A. You want me to read it, or you have got it with you?
I got it. And I would like the next question to be presented to Venerable Chandaratana. That is a question which is more into work life. Bhante, he says, in situations where it is out of our control, for example, your team is disturbing you always, or your boss is shouting at you, how is it possible to practice mindfulness? How can we focus on being mindful in those situations? I think his question has the answer, but I would like you to elaborate, Bhante.
Yeah, actually, I like to start with now. Basically, looking at the mind also is part of the mindfulness.
Yes.
Now, once you get agitated, once you get really unhappy, once you get angry, once you feel sort of a resistance. So if you are able to recognize that, so then you are coming back to yourself. So that's why, as Bhante mentioned, mindfulness is an introvert practice. So it helps us to connect with ourselves and look at ourselves rather than complaining about others, rather than blaming others. So basically, we can look at ourselves. Maybe boss may be not happy with me, he may be criticizing me. True. Is there anything wrong in what I did? Is there something that I can correct in my side? So you can honestly look back. And on the other hand, as a mindfulness practitioner, so as you go on for some deep practice, so watching the mind becomes some sort of a constant practice that we are continuing. So you may be engaged with so many other activities at the same time. You are making a separate thread, or you are making a separate attention to your own mind. So when you are talking with another person, how my mind is reacting? Am I getting sort of agitated, or am I not happy about this discussion? Am I sort of trying to show off, or am I trying to sort of look down the other person? So am I getting really hurt? So likewise, so recognizing all these different emotions is part of the mindfulness. So if you actually, the point is, don't actually wait till your boss blame you to practice it. So start watching the mind while you are continuing your practice. Say, for example, it actually naturally happens. You don't need to push yourself to that path. Rather, you start with very basics, starting with mindful walking, just a mindful breathing, like I said, on daily activities. So likewise, you are slowly introducing mindfulness, and slowly it will sort of expand and allow you to have a look, basically to step back and watch your mind. So this technique in a way is very important. It is available throughout the practice. So we are able to step out of the scene. We are able to come out of the scene rather than part of the scene. Rather than driven by the scene, we are able to come out of the scene and look at it. Sort of watch it from a distance. You are able to disengage from the situation and then watch it. So you can apply the same thing here as well. When you are talking with another person, you are, rather than simply fully immersed in it, you are able to have a separate watching mind. So you are able to sort of watch it, how it is going on. What are the attitudes in this particular discussion? How am I talking to the other person? What are the emotions arising in my mind? So if you are doing like that, you are not losing the present moment. You are not becoming so much agitated, or you are not going to cry or something like that, because you are fairly familiar with how mind is going to react. So actually this mindfulness practice helps us to have that break. Rather than immediately react. So you have this break, you can apply that break at a given time. And again, you can recognize these emotions at their very early stages. Rather than you become really emotional and crying and all these complaining and things happen, you recognize this kind of a resistance, this kind of a sort of a arrogance or denying the other person's view happening at the very early stages. At that time, you can control yourself, you can pass through it, you can go through it, and maybe once the conversation is over, rather than sort of reacting, you can come back out of the situation, and now you can have a kind of an impartial analysis of what has really happened. And if you are wrong, then you can honestly take a sort of a corrective measure. Or if the other person is wrong, you can deal it properly. So likewise, actually the clarity of mind aroused through mindfulness practice help us to get the proper decision, help us to deal with those difficult situations in our life. So therefore, definitely, it is part of the mindfulness practice.
I think it was a beautiful explanation, Bhante. As you started saying, rather than reacting, we can learn to respond to situations, because you get this psychological fire gap, which I call, there's this space between that. Another question I would like to pose to you from these questions that have come is, people want to know, when you are distracted, how do you bring your mind back to focus? Sometimes we say that you bring the mind back. Actually, what happens is various things get popped up and you get caught onto it. I would like you to elaborate a little bit so that these listeners and the participants can understand this phenomena. We think the mind is going somewhere, and you as if like you are bringing it what really happens is at this moment, something pops up and you get entangled with it, and you start continuing with that thought. And suddenly you realize, oh, I have been thinking of something else, as if like your mind has gone somewhere. Would you elaborate on that, Bhante?
Yeah, true. So basically the other point is, now in the mindfulness practice, there is no any particular object as such. We have to strictly onto that particular object.
Exactly.
So slowly we are expanding, and even to deal with various other objects. It is true that we may be starting with very basics, just being mindful of in-breath, just being mindful of out-breath, maybe mindful of your left leg, how you are mindful of right leg. So this is the sort of the basics. But it doesn't mean that always we have to return to that object continuously. Rather, even say once your mind drifted, if you know that you are not in the sort of that previous primary object as called, so you are not there, but you are mindful, now I am in a different place. But there, if you can be mindful, so no harm. Say for example, while you are practicing, there is a little noise popping up. So actually it has happened during my discussion. So while I was presenting my presentation, so someone started to talk and I actually heard it. So rather than sort of becoming agitated, I was able to calm down myself and continue the thing. So these are the little things that we can learn. Actually, these little falls coming on our way, these little challenges coming in our way, actually helps us to sort of strengthen the mindfulness. Suppose you are simply starting your mindfulness, these little things actually really you consider as a real disturbance. You hate them, you curse them, and sort of many things are there. But on the other hand, slowly, if you are expanding or improving mindfulness, so this becomes another object of your attention. So you have a sort of a fairly wide space, you have a fairly embracing kind of an attitude. You can include even this disturbance to your practice. Rather than rejecting it, this is another event in your practice. This is another object to your field of awareness, and that is also included. And as you said, so once you are looking at it in that angle, you are not adding additional agitation to that. You are not adding another defilement to that. Rather, this is another incident, another incident happened during my practice. Okay, let it come and let it be. I am aware of that. Now it has gone. Let me come back to my practice. Let me come back to my primary object. So likewise, as we are moving forward, these are actually possible to handle. So those are not really difficult things to handle.
Bhante, doesn't this kind of questions arise, especially when people equate mindfulness, developing awareness into concentration? So there is this pre-gone conclusion that my mind must be on a single object, and a lot of people try to watch the breath, and then they discover at that time you become more aware of other thoughts. Then they say, oh, I will never be able to meditate because my mind is going all over. I think if you can shed some light onto that, this pre-gone conclusion, whereas in mindfulness, what we do is we try to improve our awareness constant, let any object come. It's like in a lab, you're watching under a microscope, allowing things to move. If you could elaborate a bit on that, Bhante, it will be useful.
Yeah, thanks. So basically, as I mentioned, so we are slowly expanding our awareness. So basically there are different way we can explain it. So we have sort of a micro mindfulness and we have the macro mindfulness kind of thing. So paying attention to very limited environment, you are focusing your attention to a very limited scope is one part of it. On the other hand, you are expanding your attention and including everything is another aspect of mindfulness. So therefore, these both are necessary. We can't deny one and only say that this is the only part, but rather mindfulness allows us to have that complete picture as well as the sort of reduced picture as well, kind of narrowed down picture. So actually the point is we need to have a kind of an open attitude. That is the most important thing. So if we have a very rigid attitude, kind of a fixation, thinking that the experience that I am going to have has to be like this. Then from the very beginning that we have a wrong attitude. Basically, we have to encourage, okay, let's practice the way it is. So whatever it is coming on my way, I can be mindful. So it is not that disturbances are coming on your way by sort of telling you beforehand. Rather, so they happen by themselves. So that is why we call them disturbances. But if we have the correct attitude, if we have the correct mindset, actually we can get the advantage from that. Actually, our Dr. Savinasa used to say that even garbage can be converted to compost. So something like that. So whatever the challenge coming on our way is a kind of helping us to improve ourselves, to broaden our mind, to enhance our mindfulness. So that is why even when it comes to Dhammanupassana, even the hindrances become hindrances become part of the practice.
Objects of attention.
Objects of our practice, objects of our awareness. So likewise, mindfulness has a very beautiful sort of expansion. It is not, as you said, it is not the concentration practice where you are always expecting your attention to be on a certain object. But here has the capacity to enlarge it, expand it, so that everything can be included.
Thank you, Bhante. It was very, very enlightening, and you made it sound, it clarifies a lot of doubts that many people have on this whole practice. The final question I would like to pose to Venerable Dhammajiva Maha Thero. Bhante, in this practice of mindfulness, how does it happen? Now we say mind, and then we are becoming aware of what goes in our mind. Is it a part of the mind that is watching the other part, or is it a process that it takes by itself? What really happens, Bhante?
It is a serious question taken by the commentarials, and they say our eye can see everything in the world, but I cannot see the eye.
Yes.
So then, how can we believe? Okay? And Diamond Sutta, it says, diamond is the most sharpest thing. If you made a sword out of diamond, that sword can cut itself? So, okay? So, Mahasi Sayadaw says, the moment you become mindful, you cannot be aware that you are mindful. You can be aware.
The moment you become mindful,
cannot become mindful, you cannot be aware that you are mindful. It has happened to be another thought moment. The end of the finger cannot touch by the end of the finger. It can be touched by another finger. So therefore, continuity of mindfulness is completely different story. One thought moment of mindfulness is something unverifiable. So that is why the mindfulness has to have a kind of a sustainability. Satipatthana means establishment of mindfulness. So we have the natural, the endowment. We are born with mindfulness, but we are not verifying it. The Buddha is the only person pointed it out. Not only you just be mindful, you must know. So therefore, that very knowledge is come under the clear comprehension. That is come under Yoniso Manasikara. Otherwise, we are naturally mindful people, not to worry. We bloody fools, we don't know. So therefore, one Irish girl wrote an article, the born to be free. We are born enlightened. We don't know. We think we are such a caste and we are so much so and that blah, 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 blah. I cannot be mindful, I am not enlightening and kind of thing. But I am not going to sell enlightenment in the cheap rate. That is not my idea. But I am telling human beings do not know their own value. The Buddha says, Satadipateya sabbe Dhamma. Everyone is mindful, whether they do not know or not. That verification is the aspect. That is the verifiability of the verifiable faith is the innovation of Buddha. But that is the only thing Buddhists are lacking. I am very sorry. They don't know how to verify. It must be verified. It's not the scientific way. So you and me, that is, we don't believe mindfulness as a faith. We verify it. when we met up with the difficulties, the resilience is the answer, how quickly you can come back to the mindfulness. So Richard Davidson has selected 6 character types. One thing is a resilience type. Some people take long time to come back. So on the way back to the mindfulness from the distracted object, Buddha has given 4 stages. That is appear only in the Vinaya Pitaka. Sarati, Vivarati, Uttani Karoti, Desheti. Sarati means you know something wrong somewhere. That means you know you are not mindful.
Right.
It is the greatest thing. That you don't worry, but you know. And Vivarati, you open it and say, earlier I used to get frustrated and discouraged and self-denying, but I know I am not mindful.
Right.
And then Uttani Karoti, he highlighted, this is the greatest thing. Now I can go back home because I know I am not in the... I lost. Missed the bus. And the last one is the most important. They say you have to tell someone, otherwise you won't get benefits. Did you follow me?
Yes, Bhante.
So you are reporting, our discussion is enlightening even for the non-mindful people. Because we know we have lost. On the way back is not with the Buddha's instruction, not with teacher's instruction. You come back, once you come back, you know, verily knows, this is the mindfulness, this is the advanced level of mindfulness I call, this is the attending to her age. කෙල්ල ලොකු වුණා කියන්නේ අන්න එතෙන්දී තමයි.
I think that's a very interesting and an enlightening moment to end this very, very beautiful Dhamma discussion. We started with the very basic, and without our realizing, we reached some very profound states of discussion. And I once again thank and much merit to Venerable Dhammajiva Maha Thero and Venerable Chandaratana Thero for sharing with us this very valuable Dhamma and encouraging us to continue our efforts in this path of Dhamma. And once again, I thank all of you who participate in this program and All Ceylon Buddhist Congress for putting together this very beautiful evening. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Deepal. It was really a very, very good panel discussion that we had. And as I said earlier, the Venerable Dhammajiva Maha Thero, the decision was quite correct, because he said someone who really knows and understands mindfulness to do this panel discussion, and I'm very happy that we covered most of the areas that were there. The Venerable Dhammajiva Thero from the beginning on the mindfulness itself, because it was made so simple that I'm sure that all those, our devotees who listened to it, were able to grasp what was meant by it. And in Venerable Chandaratana Thero, where in the real practice, where he said, even in the work life, how this could be used. So today, mindfulness is very, very popular in the commercial field. So that's where I feel that Deepal will be able to play a leading role, because if we can take it to them, and one of the most important things is to see that the economy is doing very well. So they will be able to look at not only on the profits, but make use of mindfulness to serve the society and the nation. So once again, Venerable Bhante, Dhammajiva Maha Thero, and also Venerable Chandaratana Thero, and our moderator. So before I conclude, I will like to invite our member, Mr. Kamal Nilevira. He is really speaking from UK, and he just told me some good news. He's taken the vaccine for the COVID-19 pandemic, whereas we have only just received the vaccine stocks. So I'm sure that we will also be very soon be in this fortunate situation. So I will invite Kamal, and thereafter I will request Bante Dhammajiva Maha Thero to give the blessings and to end the seminar. So first I will invite Kamal to say his final words.
Thank you, Professor Vatavella. Thank you very much. And to all of you, Thero and Saranai. It was a very enlightening Dhamma Desana today on this Durutu full moon Poe day by Venerable Dhammajiva and Venerable Chandraratna. Much merit to both of you, Venerables. Really, it was very down to earth and it was easy to understand. And I also want to thank our moderator, Mr. Deepal Suryarachi. We know how busy he is and he has taken time out to be with us. Once again, thank you, Deepal. And also Mr. Jagat Sumatipala, our president. I want to thank all the participants. We had a total of over 250 participants from all over the world. Very, very much appreciated, and I hope this Dhammadesana was of use to you all. I think the value of mindfulness and its value by practicing in a daily life makes our lives much, much better. And finally, I want to thank the ACBC and mainly to Professor Vatavella for taking such an effort in organizing this Dhammadesana, which gives all of us living overseas an opportunity to be linked with Sri Lanka and with the Dharma. Thank you and Buddha Saranai. Thank you.
Venerable Dhammajiva Thero,
yes, Professor. Now it's end of our session, and I thank you. And because you connected myself and Deepal after long years, and now please keep him as the marriage broker, and he is the kapua, and he will maintain because he is practical person, and I thank. And now I am going to share merits with all the seen and unseen beings, and we have done meditative and Dhamma listening, Dhamma talks, and therefore whatever the merits we accrued, we are sharing with all the seen and unseen beings. And
Venerable Thero, everyone wants to see Venerable Thero, so if you don't mind, if you can unmute the video, they will all like to.
So that make little friction in me, but I will listen to you. You are the people exposing me and you have to take the responsibility. Okay, we are sharing merits and we are going to recite the traditional stanzas. I think many international people do not know, but I invite them to listen carefully. Those who know can join with me. Ettavata jangammehi sambetang punya sampadang sabbe deva numodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata jangammehi sambetang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta numodantu sampatti siddhya. Ettavata jangammehi sambetang punya sampadang sabbe satta numodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasatta ca bummatta deva anaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu sasanang. Akasatta ca bummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu desanang. Akasatta ca bummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu mang parang. May you all remember all the relatives living and already passed away to share merits. Idang
Much
ho
merit to
nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyateyo. Idang ho nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyateyo. Idang ho nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyateyo. To remind our objective and to share it with our merits, we will present our motivation by Imina Punya Kammena. Imina Punya Kammena Mami Bala Samagamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Patya. Imina Punya Kammena Mami Bala Samagamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Patya. Imina Punya Kammena Mami Bala Samagamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Patya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Over to you, Professor.
Venerable Dhammajiva Maha, much merit to you, and also to Venerable Chandratna Thero and Deepal for moderating, and also all our devotees for thank you very much, and all the blessings to them, much merit, and Buddha Saranai.
Teruan Saranai. Teruan Saranai. We are disconnecting from this end.
Everyone, certainly.